Coming up on KCCI 8 News Close Up, Des Moines Schools' new plan to crack down on student violence as districts across Iowa deal with a new round of social media threats. The Omicron variant of COVID is now in central Iowa. The threat doctors say that poses when only 55% of Iowa's population is vaccinated.
This is Iowa's news leader. This is KCCI 8 News Close Up.
Good morning and thank you for joining us. Some central Iowa schools dealing with an increase of student fights this school year. Friday, the Des Moines School District announced changes to the way it deals with the problem. The first time a student is caught fighting, that student will be placed on what's called a behavioral contract to resolve what led to the violence. The second time the student is caught fighting, the student must attend virtual classes for 30 days while the school and student try to resolve the violent behavior. If the student is caught fighting a third time, that student must attend virtual classes for 60 days. KCCI's James Stratton talked with Superintendent Thomas Ahart on why Des Moines schools launched this new policy.
It's really important that those involved recognize mutually what the cause of the altercation was, and understand better how to avoid that kind of a reaction in the future. So, you know, that's going to continue to be a piece of this. However, if there's a pattern of violent behavior on the part of one of our students, we need to ensure that they're getting appropriate supports and at the same time keeping the rest of the school environment safe.
Sure. I think I know the answer to this, but can you tell me specifically why this plan was put into place? What led up to this in DMPS that decided, hey, we need a more firm plan to stop fights? Well,
Frankly, our data tell us that at some grade levels we've had an increase, but it's not. If you look at our data overall, there's not really been an increase, but certainly social media has created a perception that things are a lot less safe, you know, than they are. And so another thing that we're revisiting is our policies relative to social media. We don't have a concrete step to take on that right now, but anything that a student does who's not directly involved with a physical altercation but exacerbates the sense of safety and prolongs the impact of an altercation, we want to take that very seriously as well. So really we're trying to address a couple of things. One, our students in a regular year, which seems like we don't have those anymore, but in a typical year, we have our students for about 12% of the year in total. They're at school about 12% of the time. So they're bringing with them whatever they've experienced, whatever they've been exposed to, whatever's been modeled for them, whether that's through the media or in the circles that they run in when they're not at school. They're bringing that to school. And we know that our students, especially over the last 2 years, have had even less time at school than in a typical year. So they're sort of condensing the socialization process that would, you know, organically have taken place over the course of the last 3 years into a much more compacted time. And so we want to make sure that as they bring the trauma from COVID-19 and, you know, social unrest, whether that's political or you know, reconciling racial issues, that all of those things combined is a lot of weight for those students to be carrying into school. And we need to ensure that both students and staff know that when they come to school, it's a safe environment and the priority is learning.
The release you sent said it's going to, now you were kind of alluding to it there, it's going to take the entire community to get behind this.
Now, at the same time, Des Moines schools were announcing their new violence policy Friday. West Des Moines police announced the arrest of 5 students for making violent threats at Stillwell Junior High School over the previous week. 2 of the students face felony terrorism charges. The other 3 face first-degree harassment charges and an aggravated misdemeanor. West Des Moines police say the threats caused many Stillwell parents to pull their children from school. Now, those arrests were unrelated to another school threat Friday that had schools across Iowa on alerts. Anonymous posts on the social media app claimed Friday was American School Shooting Day. The post did not name a specific school or district. KCCI's James Stratton talked with Iowa State Education Association President Mike Baranek about what may be behind the growing number of social media threats aimed at schools.
We took this very seriously, as well as our community school districts have, and we notified our folks through social media that there's a possibility of this occurring today, and school districts throughout Iowa informed their parents, foster providers, and guardians that this was something that could be happening. We take this incredibly seriously, and we believe that everyone needs to be informed that there is this potential for this kind of action, not only today, but every day within our society. And so our educators were very thankful that we helped notify everyone.
We got a press release from about a dozen metro schools regarding this, and they had an interesting part at the end of it, and I want to ask you about it as well. They say it's a great chance to talk to your students about social media and the seriousness of potentially making these threats. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. Social media has become quite a problem in helping individuals communicate this kind of action, whether it's warranted, they're going to follow through with it or not. There is still the availability of various social networks to have this kind of communication. We wholly agree that parents, foster care providers, guardians, community members, churches, synagogues, temples, everyone needs to be talking about not only the ills of social media, but also the importance of making sure that our students are learning and growing. As you know, James, there have been attacks made on our educators regarding curriculum or particular books. It's time, James, for our communities to take back the narrative and to have everyone be involved in educating our children and supporting our educators in our building.
It's been a tough year for kids. It's been a tough year for parents, guardians, foster parents, as you mentioned. What can we all learn from this as we end 2021?
Well, what we can learn, James, is that we all need to come together and we need to work together to help our students move forward. Everything that is happening in society is coming into our school buildings. And our school buildings are there to help our students learn and grow and become members of a democratic society. Our educators can't fix everything. And that's what we're being required to do at this moment. And so there is a high level of stress in our schools. As you know, James, there's a teacher shortage, there's a substitute shortage, there are folks not entering the field because the expectations just keep growing and growing and growing. And we as community members need to work together to raise that child, to raise our community up so we can continue to move forward. The one thing I need to remind everyone is that education is the foundation of our economy here in Iowa. And we need to support those people who are working in our schools and help support the work that they're doing with our students.
Next on Close Up, Omicron in central Iowa. The first case is detected in Polk County. The threat that poses, especially to the unvaccinated. And speaking of vaccinations, it was 1 year ago that the first Iowans got their COVID shots. See how those first recipients are doing now.
I don't care about any award show. I haven't seen my Cleo.
Well, Friday, the Omicron variant was detected in Polk County. The Polk County Health Department believes the person who tested positive likely caught it from someone else in central Iowa because that person had not traveled to an area known to have a high transmission of Omicron. Health officials also say the person who tested positive was fully vaccinated but had not received a booster shot. The first case of Omicron in Iowa was detected in Black Hawk County earlier this month. As of Friday, Iowa had 18 confirmed cases of Omicron in 7 different counties. So now that Omicron is spreading person to person here in central Iowa, what kind of threat does that pose? Well, KCCI's Cynthia Fodor talked with Dr. Ravi Vamiri, infectious disease specialist with Mercy One, for that answer.
So there's typically a lag behind what's really out there and what we're able to detect. We have to remember that we've only known about this particular variant for maybe, 20 days now. And so it's probably circulating out there, and there's probably a lot more than we realize. Other states are starting to see this. And some of the other countries which were ahead of us in getting this, for example, Britain, South Africa, etc., Omicron tends to be much more infectious and probably will end up outcompeting Delta. And then the vast majority of cases will eventually be Omicron. So what does all that mean for the average person? Well, right now, what it means is, we need to keep practicing our social mitigation measures that are so important, especially with such high community transmission. We need to be wearing our masks. We need to avoid large indoor gatherings. If we're going to be mixing outside of our immediate bubble, we need to monitor our symptoms. And if we're going to be coming across compromised people where we might be indoors with them and we might want to take off our masks, or, older relatives, grandparents, etc., then people probably should test themselves before meeting such people. And then the most important thing is everybody needs to be fully vaccinated. And if they're eligible for a booster, then they need to get their booster as soon as possible. So those are the tools that we have. And we have to use all of them. We can't just rely on one. We have to use multiple tools.
And you mentioned the booster. Official with the Polk County Health Department mentioned that there is strong evidence to support that the boosters do help to stop the spread of this Omicron variant. I mean, it is still new. We still are learning a lot about it, correct? I mean, what do we know about it so far?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. What they found is, and now one has to keep in mind that these are basically laboratory studies. So what they did is they took people who got 2 doses of a messenger RNA vaccine, either Pfizer or Moderna. Then, they got their booster. And then approximately a month after such individuals got their booster, they harvested serum from them and went to the lab and in test tubes or petri dishes or whatever, they measured the virus neutralizing capacity of that individual's antibodies. So in other words, fully vaccinated and then appropriately boosted, you take their antibodies and you see how effectively they're able to inactivate the virus. And for Pfizer, and I think Moderna has similar data, 90 or more percent were still able to inactivate even Omicron. So that's good news. The bad news here is those that have been fully vaccinated, and if it's been more than 6 months from their second shot, in other words, they haven't been boosted yet, those people are at increased risk. Now, not as much risk as someone who's totally unvaccinated, but definitely more risk than somebody who's been boosted, according to these various studies. The other piece of good news in all of this is, and only time will bear this out if this is actually true, it appears that even if you get infected, if you're fully vaccinated and boosted, you will not be severely infected. In other words, you won't end up in the hospital, you won't end up in the ICU, you won't end up dying. It protects against all of those things. But if you're unvaccinated, even though Omicron may be perhaps less pathogenic or less capable of causing severe disease, that doesn't apply to unvaccinated people. If you're unvaccinated, it's very unpredictable, and it could lead to very severe disease and hospitalization and ICU stays and ultimately death.
Well, next on Close Up, it's been 1 year since the University of Iowa medical staff received the first doses of the COVID vaccine. What they hope would happen when the vaccine became widely available.
You won't know my dad's name.
On December 14th, 2020, 178 employees at the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics made Iowa history. They were the first in the state to receive the COVID vaccine. Since then, more than 4.4 million doses of the COVID vaccine have been administered in Iowa. According to the state health department, a little more than 55% of all Iowans are now fully vaccinated. Now, Mike Brownlee, Chief Pharmacy Officer with U of I Hospitals and Clinics, was one of the first to get a dose of the vaccine. We asked him what he thought would happen when more Iowans finally got their chance to get the shot.
It's hard to believe that it's been a year, and that moment really did spark a moment of hope for our staff during what was easily one of the darkest times of the pandemic. You know, we're proud of the University of Iowa healthcare staff that were among the first to receive the COVID-19 vaccine to become not only safe for themselves, but also create a safe environment for our patients and to help them with COVID-19 as well. But, you know, last December, we really thought that the vaccines would help bring the pandemic to an end within months, actually. And however, that didn't come to pass. You know, with the emergence of the variants, low vaccination rates in our community, high COVID-19 transmission rates continue throughout not just our state, but others. And then hospitalizations for those that are unvaccinated are still putting a lot of strain on our healthcare systems and continue to be an issue for us. But we must keep in focus that every day we're making progress. Every additional person that receives a vaccine will help us continue to get closer to bringing the pandemic to an end. You know, it all started 1 year ago for about 178 of our UI Healthcare staff. So we're thankful and proud of our team here at UI Healthcare for going the extra mile throughout the pandemic, remaining resilient despite these significant challenges. So we're grateful once again for where we are today, having vaccines, amazing technology that we know has saved thousands of lives, but we still have progress to be made to bring the pandemic to a close. And once again, it continues to rely on those receiving the vaccine. We're sitting right now at about 92% vaccination rate throughout all of our employees at UI Healthcare. That's a very high vaccination rate for a non-mandatory campaign. What I think that demonstrates is that our staff believed in the vaccine. They knew that it would help us to create a safe environment, not only for our employees, but for our patients. We did everything we could to provide accurate information proactively, transparently, and we connected with our staff with that messaging very early in the process. So I think that helped, in providing data and evidence of the safety and the efficacy early. It helped to get our staff over that hump of adopting the vaccine and knowing that it's going to help the organization significantly. Of course, we want to be at 100%. You know, that's our ultimate target. We know that they're safe and effective. We want all of our staff to be protected. Initially, when we received the vaccine, the number of doses were very limited. So it's hard to compare trajectory now compared to what it was at that time. But we were receiving doses, and within about 2 months, 73% of our staff were vaccinated. So that initial trajectory was very high. The adoption rate was very steep. We've exceeded vaccination rates of other organizations that are like us. And so I think we've been on a great trajectory, and we continue to reach out to those that are not vaccinated and try to give them accurate information and help them understand the value of receiving the vaccine.
One other element that maybe helped with UI Healthcare was the fact that we were home to some of the trials. So we had some kind of on-the-ground information too. We were able to participate early on in the Pfizer trial, which was the first vaccine that was available. So that helped us to learn more about what to expect, and how to have those conversations with our staff. Through our employee health group, we've been tracking whether there were any events related to our staff for vaccinations. I can tell you that I personally was one of those first individuals that was vaccinated. I'm doing great. I've had my booster, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to not only have me be safe in receiving the vaccine, but it helped me feel more comfortable with my family as well to be safe at the same time. So I can speak from my own personal experience. I haven't had any issues.
Well, next on Close Up, KCCI says farewell to the heart of Iowa's news leader.
Hey there.
Well, it's a bittersweet time here at KCCI. KCCI Chief Photographer Donna Smith retired Friday after a 38-year career. Senior reporter Todd Magel worked with Donna on countless stories. He shows us what Donna meant to both KCCI and the photojournalism profession.
You don't stay somewhere 38 years unless it's a great place to work, and it is, and it always has been.
KCCI Chief Photographer Donna Smith has just about seen it all, from meeting every president.
It's always interesting and always fascinating, and a privilege to be able to cover the people who will someday lead this country.
To traveling to Australia for a month to cover the 2000 Olympics.
That was one of the hardest things I've ever done professionally, but one of the most rewarding.
Donna started her job at KCCI back in the 1980s.
So it would sit on your shoulder.
When the cameras were bigger and the number of female photographers was smaller.
It always pushed me to try to do my very best because I knew people were watching and I knew people were waiting for me to fail so they could say, well, see, she can't do it. Women can't do this job. And they can, and they do.
We've been doing this for a long time together.
KCCI Director of Photography Courtney Kintzer and Donna went to Roosevelt High School together.
She's the third female chief photographer at KCCI, which is a great legacy, and it's going to be very hard to fill her shoes.
I want to work as hard as Donna does.
KCCI Assistant News Director Dana Cardenas worked with Donna from day one.
Everyone has to go above and beyond what their particular jobs are for the team to be successful, and I don't think anyone understood that more than Donna. I mean, she was a photographer, she took care of all the equipment, but she also took care of all the reporters.
Tie straight.
At Channel 8, the chief photographer is the person who, as a former boss told me, makes the trains run on time.
But it's more than taking pictures and solving problems. It's her decades of leadership, making sure the news you see every day is the best in the business. The pride in her staff's News Photography Awards is overwhelming.
We work so hard, and we've been lucky enough that that effort has been noticed. And we've been awarded 8 National Press Photographer Awards. For Small Market Station of the Year, that's like winning an Emmy. So, very proud.
And we are proud of you, Donna. Congratulations. Todd Magel, KCCI 8 News, Iowa's news leader.
She will be missed, let me tell you. Congratulations, Donna, on a great career and a much-deserved retirement and countless stories that you can tell in retirement. Well, thank you for joining us for KCCI 8 News Close-Up. We will see you back here next Sunday, same time. Have yourself a fantastic day.